Hi everyone, David here from Craft Obsessions. As we promised, here's a quick demonstration video showing you how to create some really nice looking embellishments from a plain piece of wood. We've got a button there, we've also got some frames here. I'm thinking Christmas decorations, picture frames, the whole thing. I'll show you how this product is available for sale a little bit later, but just to basically show you how we achieve these effects, and it's ever so easy. All I'm doing, I'll start with this one first. I've taken the plain piece of wood, I've just painted it with some distress paint. You can paint it with any kind of paint you want. You could also cover it with maybe some gesso, just to basically give it a coating. It soaks into the wood as well, and just gives you a decent sort of background for stamping on. For this particular stamp, here's the one that I already completed, and you can sort of see the difference here. So we've basically created an image onto the button, and then we've covered it with some resin, and I'll show you how easy it is to do that as well. So first thing I'm going to do is just basically stamp the image onto this button, and basically I'm just going to make sure there's a word here, it just says optique, and I've found that if you have a complete word, it kind of just finishes it off nicely. So what I'm going to do is just ink up the stamp down the bottom, like so. Obviously using my Stamp Perfect here. To be honest now, I don't stamp without it anymore, because I'm not the world's best stamper. But you see now I've got a really nice, and you can see the word optique down the bottom. The rest of it's fairly nondescript, but gives it a really nice look. I was messing around a little while earlier. I also did a similar kind of thing on this one, which is basically I put some black paint over the top of the distressed pink, and then sanded it down a little bit just to give it a distressed look, and then basically used the same stamp but stamped with picket fence. Just gives it a completely different look. So they're the two that we've got there. And now as far as the resin's concerned, the resin I'm using is this stuff. And it's called Amazing Crystal Clear Resin. It comes in 2 8-ounce bottles as part of the kit. We have this on the website as well. I'll list all of the different products that I'm using in this demo underneath the video on YouTube, so you'll be able to quickly refer to the products back on the website. But basically it's dead easy. You use 50% of this one, 50% of this one, mix it up in a little pot, and you end up with this. And there's a fair amount of working time. This has been made now for about 5 minutes or so, but you can see it's still very nice and liquid, which is exactly how we need it. And then all I'm going to do on a non-stick crafting surface, like a craft sheet, I'm just basically going to take some of the resin and I'm just going to let it dribble over the button. The really nice thing about this resin is that it's self-leveling. So once we've got enough on there, and I can't stress enough, you don't want to over fill it with resin. You want sort of kind of just enough, because otherwise what happens is where it starts to level, if there's too much of a weight, if you like, on the surface tension, it will start to flow. If you just look as I'm going across the middle of the button there, it will start to flow down the sides. It's not the end of the world if it does pour off the sides, but what you'll have to do is just keep an eye on it. You can just see I'm just teasing the resin here to the edge, like so. So it's ever so easy to do. Just takes a little bit of patience, and just don't overload it. The key to this is less is more. But if you do get some that run off the side, my suggestion to you would be to take a pokey tool or something like that. While it's drying, you just basically move it around on the craft sheet just to get any of the excess resin away from the edge of the piece that you're doing, because otherwise what you'll find is that when the resin sets, and you do need to leave this overnight, guys, just to let you know, this isn't immediate gratification. You do need to leave it to set, but when they are set, you'll pick them up and you'll think, oh wow, how beautiful is that. So you can kind of hopefully get the idea here of the finished product. This one here, I did also go through and just make the edges a little bit more distressed. Just did that with some distress ink, And why don't I just do the white one so you can see the difference in how they look. And again, I'm not going to absolutely soak the piece, and in fact you see there I've actually let some go through the hole in the middle, so I'll just scrape that away. So it's not a deal breaker, you just need to be a bit careful. I'm rushing it a little bit obviously so that you know the video is not too boring for you, but the resin is really easy to work with. What I would recommend, even though I'm not doing it myself, is wearing some gloves, either some sort of thin rubber gloves or something like that. The resin does come off your skin quite easily, but it's ever so sticky, and it takes a little while to sort of get rid of it. So if you wear some gloves, and particularly if you've got nice nails, you don't want it going all over your nails. So you can see I've made a bit of a mess with this one while I'm rushing, but you get the idea. Just don't overload it. And then once it gets to the edge there, it will just sort of flatten out. I'm just sort of teasing that along. Can you see the little sort of bits there that haven't got any resin on? I'm just basically tapping, and I'm pulling the resin to the edge as I do that, so that the piece is then complete. And what I do there, where I've made a bit of a mess of that one and I've spilt some resin through the holes, all I'm going to do is just slide that away from the resin underneath and slide it away to a dry bit of craft sheet. That way you're not going to have too much residue that sticks to the product when it's done. So that's 2 buttons done, and you can see how quickly that's done, and transforming those plain bits of wood into something really quite spectacular. I think they look really elegant and classy. So that's those 2. Where I was thinking about possibly doing a Christmas ornament, you'll see on this one I've just basically foiled a Christmas tree image. Don't know if you can see that glistening there in the light. And all I did was stamped an image, one of the Tim Holtz Christmas tree stamp sets, with some flitter glue, and then I've let that dry and put some foil over the top of it to create this. And then what I thought I would do is put a nice antiqued gold frame around it. And how does that look? And what I'm going to do now is just basically put resin onto this frame. So again, this one started just like this. All of these frames basically have their own little hanging piece at the top. If you wanted to get rid of that, this stuff is really easy to cut with scissors. So you can just sort of snip that off if you wanted to, and just do a nice round cut so you'd never know it was there. But what I've done with this one, all I've done is basically paint on, again, some black distress paint, let that dry, and then I've applied some crackle glaze, which is this cosmic shimmer one that we also sell on the website. Applied some crackle glaze on top of the black paint, allowed that to dry, and then I've gone over the top with some tarnished brass distress paint, and you get a really nice antique-y kind of look. A few little cracks and sort of faults appearing on the surface of the paint, which look really lovely. And then all I'm going to do again is basically apply my resin. So you can imagine you can decorate these bits of wood any way you choose, either with paint or with dyes. You can stamp them. Here's one that I actually stamped. So same kind of deal. I think I actually did the background on this one with some gesso, and then I just stamped the image onto the top of it, and then applied some resin over the top. And again, I'm being a little bit messy with this one because I'm just trying to rush through it, but do make sure that you don't put too much resin on it, and then sort of spread it out, and you'll find that it ends up, you have a nice kind of raised surface, but it just sort of settles down, so it's perfectly flat. And the nice thing about this resin that we sell as well is it's jeweler's grade resin, so it's really good quality. It doesn't yellow, it doesn't crack once it's set. It does set to quite a hard finish. What you do need to do is, once you've done all of your resin application, you do need to leave the piece flat, and ideally you want to be leaving it overnight for it to dry properly. That is really the minimum. You could try sort of applying a little bit of heat to sort of speed up the process, but in the main I just generally leave it overnight, and then go and check it in the morning, and it's all nice and shiny and complete. So again, because I was a little bit messy, I've spilt a little bit at the edge. I'll just move this around and hopefully you can see there's a really nice uniform layer of acrylic over the top there. So that's basically it. Ever so easy to do. It's just a two-start process. You take your plain piece of wood, you paint it, or you could colour it with pens, or you could also stamp in various colours. Use your stamp platform to build up an image in different colours. Stamp onto the wood. As I say, I would recommend coating with either gesso or some kind of paint. You could use a white acrylic paint before you do that, just so you've got a surface rather than everything soaking into the wood. And then basically apply your resin on top. So you can also do things like this, for example, where it's a two-piece frame. So you've got the front of the frame like this. You also get a matching piece, whoops, which goes behind it. So in fact, I'll show you the pack here. This is how they'll be supplied on the website. So 3 different sizes. This is the oval set. They come in circles, squares and rectangles. So each one is a 2-piece set. You can either use the background and the frame together, or you can use them separately, depending on what you want to create. And the buttons we'll have available shortly. They should be here later this week. So you know, this I've basically stuck both ends together, so the backing and the frame, and then I've basically filled the inside with a couple of bits of ephemera in this case, and then I've laid the resin on the inside rather than doing the frame, and you can see how that sort of ended up, you know, sort of being level. This is where it self-levels. So, you know, loads of different ideas. You know, there's another crackle paint one there. Here's another antique kind of finish. You know, the choice is yours. A bit more crackle paint, contrasting colours, and obviously the one I showed you before that was stamped, so that I'll make a nice frame for something as well. So that's it. Hope you enjoy having a play with this technique. It really is quite satisfying, and you can create some really beautiful embellishments from just a plain piece of wood. So hope you enjoyed that. We'll see you again really soon. Thanks for watching. Take care. Bye bye.